you know what happened the last year that was going on there? Was somebody was working like, was barely ever there, wasn't focused on anything, was passing the buck on anybody, but nobody had any
right.
authority to do anything. Then you blame the economy.
Heiko, thank you so much for joining me today on my YouTube series. I'm excited to have you here. You have been in business for like ever, because you're pretty old, right?
I am, yes, I am. You never not remind me how old I am.
But you're like one of the coolest older people that I know.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That's what I hear that a lot. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to hold up this charade, but hopefully that it'll go for at least another 10 years. Let's hope.
Yeah. How long have you been in business? Like, how long have you worked for yourself?
That's a really interesting question, because you kind of have to put it in the point of, do you want to know how long I've been a photographer or a graphic designer or just somebody working? Because it seems like ever since I was about 16 years old, I'd always get into these different areas of expertise. Like I got into jewelry making, and then I got into airbrush work, and I always kind of seemed to start a business off of it. So I've always been working and creating businesses, and I've made so many crazy mistakes my whole life. Like it's ridiculous. I've done everything from I've had really cool success to all the way to being like fully 100% bankrupt. So I've been doing that that would be now 31 years. But in terms of photography, it's been 7 years. So my photography deal has been 7 years of going strong, and every year showing a very good increase in growth.
Cool.
So it's nice. There's money in the bank, and I can get through the tough times. When there are those tough times, I think we just manifest those in our minds anyway. Tough times are just us being lazy, I think.
Yeah, that's so true. I never thought of it that way. So from all your 31 years of experience,
yeah,
what would you say what would you offer the top 3 tips to businesses from your experience, and how it is with like running a business or like understanding your brand and whatnot?
Yeah, well, that's the first thing. The first thing is just kind of just awareness of your brand and like who you are, and try to. What I mean by that is just trying to be authentic. It's so easy to get caught up in everything nowadays, and we've really seen it. I think it's been like exponentially amplified these like past like maybe 3 years with the whole the YouTube blow up when Casey Neistat hit the scene. Then everybody started doing what Casey Neistat did, and then Casey just kind of burnt out, and then Kim's Peter McKinnon, and Peter McKinnon does what he does, and then he just kind of starts to fade away a little bit. He becomes more of the newest shopping channel. I would equate that to, because they're all about pushing other people's products. Like,
right.
I don't know if that's who you are, and there are those people who are those authentic salespeople. Be that salespeople, but how many times a day when you're on YouTube? Because that's like one of my, I love being on YouTube just for the fact of just you always pick something up. But my main thing right now is if somebody starts with the "What's up, everybody?" I'm done. Like, I've checked out. Because there's no authenticity there anymore, because all they're doing is following the trend. And now what you're seeing the trend is of these social media influencers and these people who are out there big on social media and stuff. They're now saying, well, I'm pulling back from social media because of the mental strain it's put on me, and I'm not going to be creating so much. And then people are like, now the big thing is saying how burnt out you are by doing.
Yes. Or like talking about self-care and all of that.
And then there's some people who have been doing self-care for forever, and those are the people who are winning at this time, right? Because those are the people that are just like, they're ahead of the game. And I like that. I like that people kind of stuck with their guns back and didn't fall into the trend. But it's trying to, and I think the hardest thing is trying to not fall into that trend, because it's really easy for me to go like, yeah, I suffer from severe social anxiety. So I'm going to make an anxiety video about how tough it is being a creative with anxiety, or I can just shut up and go to work, you know, like, and just, for me, it's always been that I want to go, if things get heavy with me, I know why they're getting heavy, because I'm not actually creating anything. So if I start creating something, that anxiety and stuff goes away. It's really amazing. Like, it's the awareness. And I think where the problem comes into play with mental health for a lot of people is that they don't have that connection in their brain to understand that that's what they need to do. They just don't know. Like, the brain doesn't work that way. It's wired differently. And it's not a fault of theirs. It's wired differently, right? But I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon now of social media people and saying, like, you know, I'm burnt out because Gary Vaynerchuk told me to hustle 24/7, you know? So that's the first thing, is just being authentic.
Do you think that by not sharing your struggles, then you're not being authentic?
Do you care if I share my struggles? Let me ask you that. Like, would you care?
No.
No, exactly. And that doesn't, you know, at the base level, yes, it hurts when somebody says no to you. Your ego hurts, but in the reality of it is nobody cares.
Yeah.
They? Like, who cares?
I feel like it's a good selling tool to, like, use it for sales, because then people can relate to you, and then you can talk about, like, last year I struggled so hard, and then I did XYZ, and now I'm out of it, and I'm, like, making $10 million or something like that. So yeah.
How much money do I make? And it's like, well, you know, how much of this is really authentic? Like, I was just talking to another photographer friend of mine this morning, and we were talking about music photography, and I was just out shooting a show, and I was talking to another photographer in the pit, and I was like looking at wanting to get into some more publications, and they were like, you know, saying like how they're working for these publications and how they, you know, how much money they're making. And I'm like, no, your publications aren't really paying that way. Like, they're not being honest with that. They're just trying to say, like, I'm being successful because I can say these sorts of things. But it's when you're actually in the industry, you're going, nobody's paying for this stuff anymore. We're all doing it for the love of it. You know, we might make it, you know, $100 or $200 every once in a while, which would be great. But I just want to get the access so I can shoot, and it brings me more mental health, and it brings me, and that leads to how I make my money in other ways, right? So yeah.
What's your second piece of advice?
Understanding who your customer is and talking to them, like using like what we're doing right now, and actually communicating with them, as opposed to just leaving it by email or text, and the easy way around it. And just making sure you get over that. Because the number one thing with that I hear from like students of mine in the past that I deal with when they reach out to me is they're having a problem with their customer. And I'm like, have you talked to them? And that's the first question I ask. It's almost like I've been watching the IT crowd. It's almost like every time somebody makes an IT request, the first thing Roy says is like, have you turned it off or on? And it's the same thing. It's like when people say I'm having a client problem, like, have you talked to them? And they're like, no. You know, I sent them an email. So understanding that also falls into play of understanding where the market is, because we can use Edmonton as a market. We got kids who go to like photography school and they want to be in the fashion industry, but they don't want to leave Edmonton. And it's like, you got a tough battle ahead of you, because we're not known as a fashion city. You know, it's not a big fashion city. There's some good photographers that are doing some great stuff. That's your competition, and they're the big fish in the sea.
Right.
But you're not gonna be shooting Vogue and stuff like that if you're hanging out here. If you want to go do that sort of stuff, you've got to go to where it is. So what do you do when you're here? Well, I still get to shoot some fashion stuff, and I still work with some hairstylists and do hair and beauty. That's still a good portion of my business. But the biggest portion of my business is we're an event city. So why don't you learn how to shoot events properly, and more importantly, deliver more what the customer needs by understanding your customer. And then you've got this work period of like May to September where you're working your butt off, and then you can take the rest of the time to work for yourself. And that's sort of how my year goes out. So that's my second one, is just really understanding who it is that your customers, and being realistic about it. Be really realistic about it, you know, and go like, I want to do celebrity portraiture. Well, good luck if you're going to stay here, right? You get to take pictures of old people. We're not even celebrities. We're stupid.
I like
in our own minds, in our own minds, we're celebrities, right? But again, we go back to the whole thing of who cares? The only person that cares is me. So.
And then what's your third tip?
Just keep everything simple. And this, I think this ties into all areas of business, but specifically with photography, I'm really now I kind of step back a little bit in my teaching, and I'm not teaching advanced photography anymore. I'm back to teaching like really beginner photography. And the big thing that I really see is that people are just getting caught up in the complexities of it. And what happens, when you first learn, you don't have the money or the skill to have the types of equipment and all the gadgets. And then you start making some money, and the first thing you do is you start buying all this garbage that you buy into because Peter McKinnon tells you that you should buy it. I'm slamming him like I'm going to get hashtag Peter McKinnon in this, and maybe I'll get famous or something. But it's like people just go by, and then you have this closet at the end full of everything. And what happens after your 4th or 5th year of doing studio photography, you're back to using one light or sometimes no light. You know, I've been working on developing a workshop where it's using like, what can you do with one fluorescent overhead light in an office building and how you can manipulate that light. But that comes down back to understanding what light is. And that's what we forget. We think the equipment's going to understand it for us. So it's about keeping everything as simple as possible so you can deliver what it is that your client needs, and you can deliver it fast and then move on to the next.
What's your number one pet peeve, or like one thing that you always see businesses maybe making a mistake? Or
blaming the economy.
Okay.
It makes me crazy. But I am coming from more of the left side of things, but I find myself like I'm one of the middle of the road between left and right. Is that yes, the economy changes, and yes, the economy can be bad, but all you need to do is you need to adapt to know what your market's doing, and that's understanding your customer. When people say the reason my business failed is because the economy's bad, well, what did you do to adapt to that economy?
Right.
What have you done to that, right? So for me right now, it's, I'm at my planning stages for next year. So right now what I'm doing is looking at, okay, so this budget came out that everybody's freaking out about, and they're saying like the sky is going to fall because the PCs are in power. Okay, well what am I going to do to adapt to that, of going, yes, okay, budgets are going to get smaller for these public types of events. So what does that mean? How can I offer a service to these types of public events, still make some money for myself, and provide them a quality product? So understanding where their pain points are, of going, like, yeah, maybe I can't go in and ask for the same amount of budget as last year, but that means that I just will scale back my work, and that opens up time to work for somebody else, and then I have to find those other areas. So I've really divided up my plan into 3 specific areas that I'm targeting, and I'm just going to push out that the information to those people, to those specific markets, and just to let them know who I am. Because that's, for me, it's if people just remember your name, you're going to get hired. And when you get caught up in, the past 2 years, I really got caught up in work, and I noticed that some of my new client work was going down. And the reason I know why it was going down is because I was caught up too much doing the day-to-day work and not worrying about being out there and talking to people, so people remembered your name. As long as people know your name, that's just like when they hear photo, oh, Heiko, oh, let's just get him to do it, right? Like we know that he does it. We know that he can do a good job. Boom. And then it's like, yay, then, we keep going. So for me, it's that big thing about blaming the economy and not adapting to what your customer needs. We went through it really hard, where we saw the decline of an institution, of a school in this city that was really needed in this city. I'm not going to say the name of the school. You'll know if you know me. But the number one thing that the person who ran that operation said was that they said that it was because of the economy, and no, it was because of laziness, and it was because of the lack of adaptability and listening to what your customers need, and running your business based upon ego as opposed to running your business based upon like pragmatic practices.
Shots fired.
Have to say it. I always have to say it. Right?
Shots fired.
It's not really shots fired. It's like I just talk to people, and they hear this story, and they think it's so bad. Oh, poor you. And it's like, you know what? Do you know what happened the last year that was going on there? Was somebody who was working, like, was barely ever there, wasn't focused on anything, was passing the buck on anybody, but nobody had any authority to do anything. Then you blame the economy. So anyway, that's a whole other story. We went on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Heiko, do you still do your podcast?
I do my podcast, and I'm just in the process of I've recorded season 3
Cool.
of In This Together. It's going to be really cool. It's still based on creativity, but the thing that I found was what was happening was there was all these podcasts for creatives talking to other creatives, and you're starting to hear the same answers over and over again, and then I kind of equated it to it's like when you get older, right? And you look in the mirror, it gets, you start to, your face. So to find something new on your face, it takes a long time to look for that. So if you keep hearing the same people saying the same thing, you're not going to pull anything new. So in terms of creativity, I'm not talking to other creatives. I'm talking to other business people. So I'm talking like a mortgage broker. I'm talking to a house painter. I'm talking to who else did I talk to? I talked to like a salon owner, a hair salon owner, like a total business person. Like, just where are you getting your ideas from, and how do you get through these types of challenges that we have as creatives? But we're all in this together, and that's why it's called that way.
Where can people listen to that podcast?
iTunes, Spotify, just look up In This Together, or you can go to ittpodcast.com. It's just got kind of a brief, and that links you to Spotify. It's on all the major channels and stuff. So
okay, and then if people want to stock your photography, just heikoryll.com?
Yeah, just go www.heikoryll.com.
Cool. Yeah.
And then if you want to check out our studio space, which is an open creative space, it's Workstat, WERKSTATT-YEG.com. That's pretty cool. Today we have like a really big production in from Toronto.
Oh, cool.
So we have our studio is just packed full of stuff. And next week we have a music roundtable going on with musicians in the province for 2 days. So we've got some cool things that are happening there. We've had some like pop-up chefs come in, so it's pretty awesome.
That's really cool. Yeah, I've only been there once. I feel like I need to come stalk you more.
You need to come and hang out. It's always changing. It's always growing. It's awesome. Edmonton is such an awesome city. I just love it here.
Yeah, me too. Okay, thanks for being on my show, Heiko.
You're welcome.